Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pat's Mythos. My name is Pat. I'm here today with another monthly wrap up and TBR video looking at the months of July, what I read in July, and what I plan to read coming up in August. Overall, July was a pretty solid month. I had a couple of really great books in there. I was coming off a vacation, and so it took a little bit of time to get back in the rhythm of reading. Thankfully, I was able to do it, and I think I had a really good month overall. So I'll go ahead and start talking about the books that I finished in July that I had begun in June. The first book that I began in June and finished in July was Dark Sea's End by Richard Nell. I gave Dark Sea's End 4 stars and I read it on my Kindle. This is a sequel book as part of a sequel series to the Ash and Sand trilogy, one of my all-time favorite series. I talked a little bit about this book on my last wrap up because I think I had just finished it when I filmed that one, but overall I thought it was a solid continuation of the Ash and Sand world. Had some great new characters, some familiar characters, and I'm really excited to continue the series whenever Richard Nell puts out the next book. I still am just such a huge fan of the world and everything he's created with Ash and Sand, so I'll definitely be signed up to continue whenever that comes. The next book that I started in June and finished in July was Different Seasons by Stephen King. This is a set of novellas, 4 novellas, written by Stephen King that he put out, I want to say in the mid 80s that this came out. And so I learned through the author's note at the end that these were 4 stories that he had kind of had sock drawered away, put away, that he knew he wanted to publish at some point, but it's just tough to put out a single novella. So he ended up having 4 of them to go together in this book, Different Seasons. And I absolutely love this book and I gave it 5 stars. So I listened to this on audio. It was narrated by Frank Muller, who, if you're familiar with Dark Tower or a lot of other Stephen King books, actually, he is a favorite amongst a lot of audiobook fanatics for his work on Dark Tower. And I have to say, it's a little different style narration in this one. I think maybe he wasn't quite as old, so his voice was different when he narrated it, but it was still a very great narration. And I'll always prioritize books that Frank Muller narrates over, reading them traditionally on my Kindle or with a paperback. So all 4 of these stories were fantastic. I would say if I were to rate them individually, none of them were lower than 4.5 stars. I gave a few of them 5 stars, and so rounded out, I gave the whole book 5 stars because it was just an incredible collection. I really think my favorite one would have been Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption. I have seen the movie of that, and I thought that this was a pretty loyal adaptation. I thought it was a pretty loyal adaptation to this book, and overall, I really loved it. It is, set in, I guess, over many decades, following a prisoner in a Maine prison who, swears he did not commit the crime he's there for, and just does a really good job of just going into the daily life, kind of like slice of life of prison during those days. All the characters, the people you meet, and the way the system works within the prison. It was just really lovely, and to me, I loved it just as much as a movie, if not more. So, if anything, if there's anything that could maybe entice you to check out Different Seasons, Shawshank Redemption alone makes it worth it, and I loved that story. The others were also great. The Body, which is Stand By Me, I loved that. I have actually never seen that movie all the way through, but I'd love to go back and watch it now. The other 2 were The Breathing Method, which was great. Definitely a little different from what I was expecting based on the other stories. They're all really unique. I wasn't sure what to expect because The Breathing Method was kind of the one that I had no prior knowledge on. And the other was Apt Pupil. Sorry, I couldn't remember it for a second. Apt Pupil was wild. It was crazy. It was more, I would say, what you'd expect from a more like traditional scary horror King. Well, not really being horror, more of like a psychological thriller. It was completely different from what I was expecting going in, and was just crazy. Again, all stories were great. Highly recommend Different Seasons if you want some non-true. It's not really, none of them are really true horror. A lot of them are pretty standard fiction. So definitely check out Different Seasons if you want a taste of see King kind of stretch his normal literary muscles on these stories. And next, the book that pretty much devoured my entire month because it's long and dense and took me some time to get through. That is House of Chains by Steven Erikson. This is the 4th book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, which I'm reading as part of a read-along right now that's going on the Grimoire Discord. And so, this book pretty much took me like over 3 weeks, which honestly, for books that approach 900 to 1,000 pages is pretty standard for me. I'm just not that fast of a reader. And House of Chains was great. It was very different from the first few Malazan books. It has a very non-traditional start to the story where you follow a single POV for at least the first few hundred pages. And to me, that was probably my favorite part of the whole book. And the character that is introduced there, I think, and his story continues over the rest of the book, truly is to me the best character, like the first truly special character that we've gotten so far in Malazan. So I'm very excited about that. The rest of the book was still very good. It definitely confused me in a lot of ways more than some of the other books did. It just felt like I couldn't quite connect the dots on everything, but that's kind of to be expected. But when I did connect the dots on some things, it was very satisfying. And yeah, I could see why this book probably isn't in a lot of people's favorite lists for the series Malazan, but I still really enjoyed it, and I still think I'd probably put it above Gardens of the Moon, but still below Memories of Ice and Dead House Gates for the first four books of the series. I expect to be continuing Malazan with Midnight Tides as part of the read along that we're doing. I'm not quite certain when that's going to be, but probably in September or October. I'll be trying to tackle that. So looking forward to continuing. And last but not least, the last book that I read or listened to in the month of July was Wool by Hugh Howey. This is the first book in a post-apocalyptic trilogy called The Silo Saga by Hugh Howey. And this book was a bit of a mixed bag for me. Again, I listened to it on audio, loved the narration, really loved the start of the book. Like the first half was just great. It was just very unique post-apocalyptic fiction, and really the whole story was very unique overall. So the first half, I really was hooked. I really loved it. Then in the second half, the story has kind of split into some different storylines, and unfortunately, there was one storyline that I cared the most about, and the others I just could not get myself to care about. And this mysterious post-apocalyptic world that we were in sort of lost a little bit of its mystique to me as I was following these stories. I just wasn't that fascinated in. I'm still probably going to try to continue it, which is with Shift, maybe in the next few months, continue it on audio because they're relatively short. But yeah, this book, it has a lot of potential and a lot of people will love it. I do think it has some high highs amongst the low lows that I experienced listening to it. But yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. It at one point felt like it might be a 4.5 out of 5 star book, but it just sort of dropped as the story went on for me. I'm hoping that Shift can sort of bring back that first feeling I had reading Wool and really have me enjoying the series again. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I'd like to continue it in audio, and I really hope that it can bring me back to how much I loved the beginning of Wool. That's all I read in July, and I'd like to assign Book of the Month for the month of July. That goes to Different Seasons. It was the only 5 star book of the month, so it kind of makes sense probably to give that the book of the month. I really enjoyed listening to it. I loved all 4 stories, and again, highly recommend you check it out. Whether you're a King fan or not, there's probably something that everyone will love in that book. All right. Now, looking ahead to August, I've already started a few books that, as I film this in the first few days of the month of August, that I'd like to talk about now and then go in what I plan to read in the rest of the month. So, this is a book that I started in July and I've been very slowly reading, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, and that is Kane Minato's Confessions. So I got just a craving for like some kind of thriller or crime novel. I don't know. A lot of people were reading them on some of the various discords I'm a part of, and it really just had me craving just some kind of mind-blowing thriller. I just was really in the mood for it. Unfortunately, with a relatively stacked TBR, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to fit this in. I asked my wife about, she reads similar books, some thrillers and stuff, and said we should read a book together. Instead of maybe watching a TV show together this month, let's every once in a while just read a chapter of a book together, take turns reading aloud from the Kindle. And so the one we picked was Confessions by Kane Minato. It is a Japanese story that was translated into English, and we're reading it pretty slowly. We've only read the first few chapters. We probably only pick it up a couple times a week and, read for about a half hour. But we really like this system of reading to each other. It's really cool to enjoy a book with somebody other than in a read along or in any other way. To really listen to a book together as you read it to each other is a really fun way. I highly recommend it that any 2 people could do it together, or groups of people could read a book aloud to one another, and it's just been awesome. The book Confessions is about there's a teacher whose daughter died, and the teacher believes that some of her students in her class may have had something to do with her daughter's death, and basically sets out to get revenge on the students who caused her daughter's death. And again, we're only through the first couple chapters. They're very long chapters. I think the whole book is only 6. So first 2 chapters were probably about a quarter of the way through the book, and there have just been some insane, crazy twists, some insane content overall. I'm really excited to see where the book is going. I hope to finish it here in the month of August, but again, because we're reading it so slowly, it could easily trickle into September. So we'll just have to see at the end of the month where we stand. All right, and the next book on my August TBR that I did start in the month of July is The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. So this is a historical fiction kind of fantasy blend, as far as I can tell, that takes place in 5th, 6th century Britain, telling the story of Arthur, which is kind of a well-known mythological character that I really didn't know much about coming into this. It's, of course, you hear of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and that sort of thing, kind of growing up in various stories, but I didn't know much about the story at all. And so far, I'm about halfway through. I started it a week ago, and I am absolutely loving this book so much. It's better. It's exceeding expectations in almost all ways. This is, again, part of the Warlord Chronicles trilogy, so it's the first of 3, and it is just very much a pleasure to read. It flows very well. I feel like I'm learning certain things about the history of that time and some of the real life facts. You know, we have Christianity encroaching its way into a post-Roman Britain, which is just very fascinating to me to learn some real history while it kind of feels like you're reading a fantasy tale with kings and conflicts and things like that. Yeah, I'm loving it. I am mixing in the audio along with the paperback. When I'm not reading the paperback or if I'm out in the car or have a chance to listen to the book, I will. Kind of a side note, it's kind of funny. I plan to do immersive with this. So, you know, sit and actually read the book while listening to the audiobook, which I've had decent success with in the past. But for some reason, as great as the audiobook was, my brain is just not in a place to immersion read right now. It's like my brain listens and read at different speeds. So it's like, even though I see the words on the page, my brain doesn't process them fast enough in my head. And so, or vice versa, I suppose. And so sometimes I find myself like pausing to go back and read things. So I'm not immersion reading this. I am only reading it without the audio, and then when I'm out and about, I will listen to the audio. So I guess you could kind of call that like a hybrid reading. Is probably what I'd call it. And yeah, it's been great so far. It's so enjoyable. I'm glad to be getting through it relatively quickly because it's just addicting and very good. This is part of a read along that is going on the Grimoire Discord as well, where we will be doing one book a month, starting with The Winter King, and then the next 2 months doing Enemy of God and then Excalibur. I'm doing that read along with Alex from Tall Guy Reads, RJ from RJ Tries to Read, the best new channel name on BookTube. Please check him out if you haven't. And Carlos from StoryTube. All 4 of us are kind of leading that read along and hope to do some live chats later this month or in the next month to talk about first book, Winter King. So again, having a great time with this, and it's definitely has a chance to be like a 5-star, you know, really great read for this year. And so now to continue on my August TBR, I want to talk about what my next audio read will be after I finish listening / reading to The Winter King. And this is going to be The Power of the Dog by Thomas Savage. This is going to be a small buddy read that's going on the Fantasy Network Discord. I don't really know much about this book. I know that it was adapted into a Netflix film a couple years ago that got rave reviews. And so when I found out it was a book, I was like, that kind of sounds interesting. I want to say it's more of a Western Gothic type of feel to it. So I'm really excited to see what that's all about. Again, I'm going to be doing this on audio. It's pretty short, I think about 8-9 hours. So hope to knock it out relatively quickly and see what it's all about. But excited to discuss that on Jimmy's Discord as well. And yeah, really don't know what to expect, but looking forward to it. The next actual eyeballs read that I'll read on my Kindle once I finish Winter King will be Dragon Haven by Robin Hobb, which is the second book in the Ravenwild Chronicles. I read Dragon Keeper a month or 2 ago, and overall I did like it quite a bit, considering, you know, how much flack this sub-series gets in the realm of the Elderlings. I think I just had tempered my expectations enough that I ended up pretty much, I actually kind of loved it. I mean, it really wasn't bad to me. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if Dragon Haven will be able to continue that momentum, how much I liked the first one, but I'm just excited to see how it goes. And yeah, that'll be the second of 4 books in that sub-series, and I'm really excited to hopefully finish. I'll definitely finish Ravenwild Chronicles by the end of this year, leaving me with just the final trilogy, Fits in the Fool, to tackle in the beginning of 2024. And last but not least, the final book that I hope to get to this month, which may trickle into the month of September, is Perdido Street Station by China Mieville. And this is one that I'm going to probably do the same thing as I did with Winter King. I'll probably read it when I'm home and listen to the audiobook while I'm out and just put all my effort into tackling it because it is a relatively long book. And yeah, I don't know a ton about it. Of course, I like going in blind to certain things. And I just know that it's a very creative and inventive fantasy tale and world. And a lot of people truly, truly love this book. And I think it's a part of a trilogy called Boss Log, I want to say. And I've heard great things about the following two books. So I'm hoping to love it and hoping to love China Miéville's style and see his creativity on the page. Don't know much else what to expect, but I'm excited to talk about it in future months once I finish it. And that's pretty much everything I have for today. Looking forward to a really stellar month here in August. I had a solid month overall in July. Feel free to leave me a comment down below. Tell me about your best read of July and what you're most looking forward to here in August. If you've taken the time to stay here till the end of my video, I just want to say that I really appreciate it. We recently hit 100 subscribers on the channel, so that's very exciting for me, and I'm very, very grateful. I put a poll out asking anybody who is subscribed to vote for what they would like to see my next video to be. Obviously, this is a separate thing. This video is just a normal monthly video, but outside of my normal wrap up and TBR videos. And the winner of that poll was a bookshelf tour. So look out for that coming in the next few days to a week. I am going to give you everything you need to know about my lovely bookshelves around me. That's coming your way soon. So thank you again. Have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.